I've lost track of how many founders and freelancers I speak to on a daily basis that absolutely, categorically hate outreach, especially LinkedIn outreach. It massively gives them the ick, and I would assume if you've clicked on this video that it gives you the ick too. And you know what? I can't really blame you because there are some people out there who are committing some serious crimes when it comes to outreach on LinkedIn. The worst offender of all is the dreaded pitch slapper. And if you're on LinkedIn, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the kind of people that slide into your DMs with zero context, zero knowledge on who you are, what you do, and even if their product or service is a good fit for the problems that you're facing. And worse than that, they don't really bother trying to figure that out. It's usually someone who's prioritizing sheer mass scale and volume of messages over having a meaningful, productive conversation with a potential customer. So when you've got these people clogging up the DMs, it's really easy to see why people get the ick, and it's really easy to see why people just don't like outreach. In this video, I am going to do my best to remove the ick from outreach by tackling 3 limiting beliefs that I hear the most from founders and freelancers about outreach. And my hope is that after watching this video, you can stop being held back by these limiting beliefs. Because if I'm being honest, and this might sound a little cheesy, my life changed for the better when I had the stomach to consistently outreach on LinkedIn and beyond for my business. I've met some incredible people, signed thousands worth of revenue, and generated opportunities for myself with clients, partners, friendships, mentorships, the list goes on. And none of that would have happened if I hadn't started these conversations. And all these opportunities were generated for me one icky little DM at a time. All right, limiting belief number 1, outreach doesn't work. I think this has to be the most damaging limiting belief of all to hold, because by believing that, you are essentially cutting yourself off to one of the most lucrative appointment setting tactics available to you. And the reframe is simple. Bad outreach doesn't work. Good outreach will always work. So let's break down what outreach actually is, and bear with me. So a couple of videos ago, I talked about this idea of outreach and told you to imagine that LinkedIn was like a physical marketplace, right? As you're scrolling through the feed, you're walking through the marketplace. As you're viewing people's profiles, you are approaching people's stalls to peruse their wares, right? So what happens when we put outreach into this analogy? Outreach is quite literally having a conversation with another person, albeit through a screen. And the fact that it's through a screen and you can't immediately see an expression, a reaction, body language, shit gets a bit crazy. As much as LinkedIn is nothing more than a digital way to peruse your wares through a digital marketplace, outreach is nothing more than a digital way to have conversations with those business owners. And again, this might sound like an oversimplification, but for the people that send pitch slaps, I think are really forgetting this fundamental fact, that it is a human through a screen, not a number, not a piggy bank. And people get turned off when they feel like you're treating them as such. And I'm actually going to take this analogy a little bit further. Would you, upon the first interaction with a potential customer for your product or service, stand there and monologue 3 or 4 paragraphs about you, what you've been up to, all the events you've been doing, and how great and amazing your service is? Probably not, right? Probably not. You might argue that this is an efficient way to update your network about your business and what's happening, and I suppose treat it like a newsletter sort of situation. But as a strategy to sign consistent clients, I think it's horrible. Fundamentally, sales is about solving a problem for somebody, right? It's an exchange of value and an exchange of money to solve that problem. This tactic doesn't give any room for you to discover what problems this potential customer might have that your product or service can solve. And by starting the interaction with this massive long paragraph about you, your life, and your business, they've already clicked off, they've already ignored you, they might have even blocked you, I don't know, because you're starting the conversation completely about you and why they should care about you. But fundamentally, that isn't how people work. And it certainly isn't how sales work. And my dad always says that interpersonal skills are as old as the hills. And I think a good rule of thumb for outreach is, would I say this to somebody in real life? If not, don't say it, because again, outreach is quite literally a digital version of having a conversation. And people are so accustomed now to these DMs of people who treat them like a number or a piggy bank that they are absolutely repulsed by the idea of sales at all, right? But good sales can be life-changing. So if bad outreach like pitch slapping doesn't work, what is good outreach? What does that even look like? So I shared my framework for outreach a couple of videos ago. I'll share the link in the description for that one. But for the sake of this video, I'll give you a little whistle-stop tour of some of the guardrails and best practices that good outreach should include. And again, I don't want you to feel patronized by these rules because ultimately a lot of it is common sense. So first and foremost, one of the annoying parts about pitch slaps is when somebody comes into your space with something that is absolutely categorically nothing to do with you or anything that you need, right? I use LinkedIn Sales Navigator to build out lead lists of dream clients that are the most likely to need my service of signing new clients on LinkedIn. And beyond having a list of people that you can outreach to, when you go person by person, it's definitely a good idea to have a little scroll through their profile and try to get a better understanding of, is this person someone who could really benefit from my product or service? And yes, this does take more time. I apologize to inform you that you can't just AI everything away, but shouldn't the first touch point with a potential customer be authentic, be attentive, right? Why should it be efficient and scalable and sheer mass volume if all they're going to do with that approach is not respond? So for example, I have a close friend of mine who's a coach and he writes religiously on LinkedIn pretty much 5 or 6 days a week, writes great content, he gets great engagement and he signs plenty of clients from LinkedIn. So somebody comes into his inbox and then immediately pitches him, hey, do you need ghostwriting? I can do 5 posts a week. I can get you great engagement. I can get you signed clients, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, if you had taken 2 minutes to scroll through this guy's profile, to see how amazing his content is, to see the conversations he's having, and to see all the potential customers that are leaving comments, you really would disqualify him as needing your offer. He's clearly dominating without you. But that lack of research and that lack of attention to detail is what creates this bad outreach. So good outreach, we are outreaching to the right people, and we're also spending a couple of minutes to look through their profile to make sure, is this person a good fit for my product or service, right? So the third thing is we want to approach the conversation with curiosity, okay? It's not all about me, we're asking questions about you. And you're certainly not going in thinking that you know everything about this person. They fit my ICP, so I know exactly what pain points they're facing. Like, no, don't do that. Because even if you do know exactly what problems they're facing, which who could really say, good outreach and good sales is about having the prospect say that to you. You're not trying to convince them by saying, oh, you're dealing with X and Y, Z problem. You want to ask strategic, open questions that get them to reveal, I am dealing with X, Y, and Z problem. I have pain here. I want this desired outcome, right? You want it to come from them, not from you. Fundamentally, good outreach is about diagnosing somebody. It's about identifying whether or not they are in a situation that you can genuinely help them with. It's about uncovering their pains, their desires, and their roadblocks that are standing in the way from the current situation they're in and the desired reality that they want to have. For the first 6 to 10 messages, you should just be asking questions. You should not be pitching your product or service at all. In fact, I don't think at any point in the DM conversation should you be pitching your product or service. For my offer and the strategy that I teach my clients, the CTA is to get them to book in a call, right? And yes, the caveat to that is some people don't want to hold sales calls, fine. But in my experience and what I know that works best for me is no pitching in the DMs, strategic questions, get them onto a call, and then take it from there. You should not be pitching in the DMs whatsoever. So if you are someone who has previously held the belief that outreach doesn't work, I hope you can see now that that attitude has potentially come from the hundreds, well, thousands of people clogging up the LinkedIn DMs with terrible, terrible outreach, right? People who are treating it as a spray and pray, mass scale volume tactic rather than meaningful one-on-one conversations with a potential customer and using that interaction as a diagnostic tool to figure out, can I help this person? Can I enrich their life? Can I get them from A to B? Yeah, that's good outreach. All right, limiting belief number 2. Outreach is sleazy and spammy. This is by far the biggest limiting belief that I hear from founders and freelancers, yeah? So many people hold on to this belief tight. And, thanks to our good friend, the pitch slapper, it is easy to see why. I say sales, you say car dealership salesman, sleazy scumbag, right? It's so baked into our minds that people feel like they're being sold to, and it's like you've popped up with a venomous 3-headed snake. But again, this is largely thanks to a lot of people doing terrible sales. So here's how I see it. Outreach is only sleazy if you are knowingly not providing value. You're looking for a quick buck from someone who doesn't know any better, you're preying on someone who's naive, and you're knowingly trying to take someone's money for solving a problem that you know you can't solve, right? That's when it's sleazy. If somebody had a terribly, terribly painful problem, costing them their time, their revenue, their happiness, their health, whatever the case may be, if someone had that problem and it was keeping them up at night and they were freaking out about it, and you can solve that problem for them, is the act of approaching them to solve that problem sleazy or spammy? No, at least in my opinion. And this is why we ask so many questions in outreach, right? Because we really want to figure out, can I help this person? Okay? If they are dominating and they don't need somebody like me, I'm not going to keep going, right? Or if the problem isn't quite what I thought it was and I don't know, I'm not confident I can solve it, I'm probably not going to push it, right? Because I don't want to fail them. I want to help them succeed. And also, another reason for the lots of questions is sometimes people are problem unaware, right? They know they have something wrong, but they can't put their finger on what the actual problem is, right? So we ask lots of questions to try to unearth that and uncover that. So what they thought was the problem, it actually turns out to be something completely different. And only an industry expert or a pro could be the one to point that out to them because they've done it 1,000 times. So I'll give you an example. Maybe I approach somebody in the DMs and we start talking about lead generation, and they think that they're not getting the cut through that they want, and they think that the problem could be their sales navigator list. It's not targeted enough, or maybe the first message that they're sending to people is incorrect. And they're kind of banging their head against this wall thinking, I need to sort out my sales navigator list. I need to sort out this outreach strategy, right? So then I might have a conversation with that person, exchange a few messages. But what I can see, because I've helped plenty of people with their profiles, I've helped plenty of people with their offers, I look on their profile and I can see the offer isn't clear. It's not speaking to a pain point. It's not speaking to a desire. I have no idea who the ideal client profile is. And the profile is just a complete dud, right? But they may not have realized that. So they could fix the lead list, they could fix the DM strategy, but at the end of the day, if the very root of the tree, the offer, the ICP, if that isn't dialed in, the rest of it kind of doesn't really matter. And this person could be running around spinning their wheels, for a corporate phrase, for weeks, months, maybe even years, who knows, thinking that this problem is the one they need to be fixed, but actually it was something completely different. Is it sleazy or spammy to help somebody realize that? I don't think so. Another important reframe about outreach being sleazy or spammy is that it's the foundation of business. It's what the economy is built on, right? Like, it's necessary. It's how we make money, and there's nothing sleazy or spammy about having a livelihood, right? You could, have a great referral word of mouth network and kind of sit around waiting for inbound leads to avoid this discomfort, but you're rolling the dice a little bit there, and you're putting the future of your business in the hands of other people by considering outreach to be sleazy or spammy, or that some other limiting beliefs may be lurking under there that, like, what does that say about me? What does that say about me? But you are entitled to go out there and generate business for yourself. What's the point in being in business otherwise? I believe that being able to sell and being able to engage in sales activity without getting the ick, that's a really important skill to have, because if you refuse to sell, if you refuse to kind of deal with that, you're putting yourself in a bit of a vulnerable position, because like I said, the control is out of your hands. It's with other people and your faith in them to refer you or to pass your name around. Especially for, smaller founders, smaller freelancers, people who are just starting out that don't have a name yet for themselves. Learning to sell is so important, and learning to sell without giving yourself the ick. So that is hopefully reframing the concept of outreach being sleazy or spammy. And I acknowledge that though you may understand and appreciate that, you might still experience sleazy or spammy execution of outreach, right? So we're going to deal with that now. So I think we kind of covered off this mostly in point 1 about bad outreach, but ultimately a sleazy execution of outreach, in my opinion, is this pitch slap, right? It's the idea that like, all I need to do is send this generic copy and paste message to 100 people and I'll get some business, right? For me, that's spammy. That's a little bit sleazy. Maybe not sleazy actually, because you may be able to solve this person's problem, but without doing the diagnosis, without going through the questions, without having that framework to really figure out, can I enrich this person's life? How can you be sure? Another spammy execution of outreach is the value first approach. So I'll break down what I mean by this. So this could be coming in cold to a new lead, right? And say, for example, you're selling, web design. You go onto the prospect's website and you make a Loom video about all the bottlenecks, all the reasons why it's not a good website, right? And then you send the prospect that Loom video. So arguably, that is very personalized, which is great, and it's definitely meaningful. But and I understand the intention, but that is gonna usually fall pretty flat. And the reason is, this prospect might have spent hours building this website, right? You don't know if they've done it, if they've hired someone else to do it, whatever. But fundamentally, you're coming into this person cold with unsolicited advice about something that could mean a lot to them, right? And you're essentially telling them why it sucks. And a friend of mine calls this calling the baby ugly, right? Nature of it being unsolicited is what makes it spammy, right? But if you think about taking that strategy and moving it to the end of the framework, right? So you've had the lead identify the situation they're in that shows you whether or not they're someone you can help. You've had them identify a pain point, a really painful challenge that they're going through. Maybe it's low conversion on their website. You've got them to admit to a desired reality that they want. They want to increase conversions by 50%. And a roadblock that might be stopping them from getting that. Maybe they think, oh, it's the copy, right? Or it's this design element, whatever. Once you've gone through that framework and the lead has told you what they think the challenge, outcome, desire, and roadblocks are, that's when you go with the Loom video, right? Because you've already had them say, this is what I think the problem is. And you could say, I agree. And I've broke down the website and what small changes I think you can make in this Loom video. Then that kind of approach becomes 10 million times more helpful, right? Because it's actually solving a problem that the lead has already verbalized to you. You're not coming into it cold and saying X, Y, and Z sucks. Oh, by the way, I'm Amber. Hi. It's a completely different kettle of fish. We just want to build some rapport in the first place, right? Limiting belief number 3, the final limiting belief is I hate the rejection of outreach. This is another big one. And I'm going to give you a reframe here that might sound a little airy-fairy, wishy-washy, but bear with me. And it is that rejection is redirection. I know, I'm sorry, but stay with me. Most people think that outreach is about getting as many yeses as possible, which is not the case, right? You want to get as many yeses from aligned prospects as possible. When you have a unique framework, a unique problem you solve, a unique personality, content that's unique to you, and all of these other things, a myriad of other variables, that is a lot of things that somebody needs to align to be a good prospect for you, right? So it makes sense that most people aren't going to be the right fit. And therefore, it makes sense that most people are going to say no. Some good advice I see on LinkedIn a lot about reframing the rejection of outreach is to completely depersonalize it, right? And this is where it's interesting, because most of the people that I work with, founders and freelancers, are service-based founders, right? Coaches, consultants, agency owners, that type of thing, where you are the business. And so it's very difficult then to kind of detach you from it, because you are it in a lot of ways. But you need to try to depersonalize outreach, because essentially when people tell you no, they're not telling you to fuck off and leave me alone. They're just disqualifying themselves from your offer, right? And that's great, because that means A, you don't need to waste your time, B, you don't need to waste their time, and C, you're on the road to find the next aligned yes. And plus, if everybody said yes to you, if everybody you outreach to said yes, could you comfortably deliver to that amount of clients? I certainly fucking couldn't. So I'm grateful when some people say no. When there is somebody who you know you can help, maybe you've gone through the framework and you're confident that you can solve this person's problem, but they still don't want to get on a call with you, I want you to try to remember to not disqualify this person for good, right? Sometimes the people who say no is really a not right now. So I tried to keep a lead track, and I tried to keep note of all of the people that I've spoken to that I know I could help. I've asked the right questions, I know what they're trying to achieve, and I know I can help them. But for whatever reason, it's an objection, it's a limiting belief, they're scared, they're not quite ready financially, whatever it is, they are not ready to proceed with the call. That's okay. They stay in the tracker, and I periodically follow up with them and check in on them. Because ultimately, good sales is about trust, right? And so these people need to stay in your sales cycle. They need to keep hearing from you. You need to be familiar to them. You need to pop up. LinkedIn will keep showing you their content, showing them your content, and just keep checking in on them, right? I told this story in a recent video that my current mentor, it was over a year in the making between me first knowing who he was and me signing on to work with him. And between those two times, between that time period, I actually said no to him on a sales call. Well, he tried to get me on a sales call and I said no. And that's because my trust meter wasn't full in the relatability pillar. And if you're not quite sure what I mean by that, I made a video about how to build a profitable personal brand in 2026 where I break down some content rules, so go check that out. But it wasn't until his content started to change, he started talking about his values, his morals, his philosophies, then my relatability meter went up, and then I was ready to take action with him. So the takeaways for this final point, that I hate the rejection of outreach. You don't want everyone to say yes. You want the right people to say yes. People saying no will bring you closer to the right people saying yes. And people who say no, that you know you could help and you've asked the right questions, you know you can solve their problem, keep track of them, keep checking in on them, because their no might just mean not right now. So those are the 3 biggest limiting beliefs that I hear from founders and freelancers who basically get the ick from outreach. And if you get the ick from outreach, I really do hope that this video has helped you to reframe some of these limiting beliefs and helped you to see the potential of outreach and what it could be costing you by not giving it a go. If you need any help with these reframes, you want to chat with me, you want to ask any questions, connect with me on LinkedIn, drop me a message. I'd be happy to hear from you. And if you want to work together to help you sign consistent clients on your LinkedIn, my calendar link is in the description box below. I sincerely hope you found this video useful. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it, and I will see you in the next one.